Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you enjoyed the previous video on Rhino MCP. In today's video, we'll be looking at how prompting works, right? So we might have used prompting on a daily basis. That could be talking to ChatGPT, Midjourney, or any AI tool. Prompting has become a crucial part of our life, right? And in this video, we'll be looking at the relevance of learning prompting in 2025, and do we actually need prompting this year? What is prompt engineering, right? This is one of the terms which kind of keeps floating across with AI tools. Then we look at how training process and prompting works for first text generation and second image generation. Now with prompting or with any output comes bias. So we look at what bias is. And then while prompting, I used to always wonder that does vocabulary matter, and do I need to be a master at any particular language to talk to AI tools? So let's see if that is the case as well. Then I will do some live tests with ChatGPT and Midjourney, and then let's see how to stay updated with new tools. Right? Every day a new tool comes up in the world of AI, right? But the base structure kind of remains the same. So let's see how we can keep ourselves updated with these tools, right? Now, going to relevance of prompt engineering or prompting in 2025, I personally feel this year it's going to be much more important because of two reasons. The first one being that now AI tools can talk to software, right? Previously, we would only be using AI tools for text generation, image generation. And now, because of MCP, RAG, we can talk to tools like Blender, Rhino, Revit, which is also going to put a lot of emphasis on why prompting is important, because unless you know how to talk to that tool, you're not going to get good results with AI, right? And the second is that I went to Google Scholar and I typed prompt engineering and searched this year, right? And I was surprised to see there are constant new papers releasing on prompting and prompt engineering and why it is very important, and not only in the field of design but all across, right? And I've selected few of the papers. Now this first one kind of talks about why prompt engineering is crucial for interacting with LLMs and across different sectors, that could be finance, healthcare, law, or education, and how training programs are essential for helping employees to stay relevant in the age of AI. Then this particular paper is talking about image generation using prompting, that includes Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. And what they are trying to look at is how to translate concepts like form, material, and structure for package design into AI readable formats, right? Or AI readable prompts in this case. And of course, they do say that at the end of it, a human has to be there to interfere and see overall how this process is happening, right? This next paper, I think, is really crucial in today's time, which talks about why prompt engineering is necessary in higher education. They have created certain frameworks to be deployed if needed in higher education, but they also talk about why prompting is important, and adding prompting at an early age might help students boost critical thinking and may be helpful in creativity as well, and of course make them ready in the market when they graduate, because AI is inevitably part of our lives, make it personal life or professional life. And I think the sooner we learn how to talk to these tools, the better equipped we will be. And I think this is really crucial now. And this last paper I selected because this kind of shows 200 techniques of how there are different methods. It could be zero shot prompting, one shot, chain of thought, iteration prompting, and so on and so forth, right? Why I'm showing this is because the relevance of prompting is still very much important even in this year, right? And there's another website which is called as promptingguide.ai/paper. And if you go through this website particularly, there are all the papers listed of how prompting works for LLMs, right? And if you really want to learn prompting, I think there are a lot of resources available right now, and you don't necessarily need to take any prompting or prompt engineering course. That's my personal opinion about it. Now, coming to this term, prompt engineering. I really don't know how successful this particular term is, because what it basically says that if you can talk effectively to AI tool to get the desired result you want, that's it, right? and anybody can do that, right? But the fact of the matter is, the people who are looking for prompt engineer are not looking for the people who can talk to AI tools, right? So I went through LinkedIn, right? And then I searched prompt engineer, right? And one thing that pops up, yes, you got to be able to talk to LLMs. That could be any LLMs, right? But also you got to have skills of Python. You got to have skills of natural language processing, and you have to have a degree in computer science or machine learning, And this kind of made me realize that why prompt engineering is not the correct terminology, because anybody and anyone talks about, oh, let's do this course and learn prompt engineering. And I think prompt engineering is used very, very vaguely and wrong, because to be able to become a prompt engineer, you also need to acquire these skills. And this is across different jobs that I tested, and not just only one job that I am showing, right? So to me, prompt engineering has two parts, right? One is natural language, which basically is what we use our language to talk to any AI tool, in this case, maybe English, where you don't need to know coding and you can talk to ChatGPT, Claude, Midjourney, ComfyUI, anything. And you could be anyone, right? It could be a designer, architect, educator, writer, and the learning curve is quite low. On the flip side, there is something called as programmatic prompt engineering, which specifically needs you to know coding, Python, C#, and this will be for MCP, API systems, RAG, and things like that. And for this, you need to be a developer or an AI system designer, and it has a high learning curve, right? So I feel like this prompt engineering I'm going to stress again that this word is not correctly used, and that, it has, in my opinion, has two distinctive parts to it. For this particular video, we'll be looking at natural language prompt engineering, because that's what I know, and that's what most of us are into, I am assuming, right? Now let's see how natural language prompting works, not prompt engineering, how natural language prompting work, right? We'll look at first at text generation and then image generation, okay? Now, coming to text generation, right? Now, when we think of prompting, it's very important to understand how the training process happens. If we don't know how training process happens, we don't really know how prompting works. Basically, we got to start thinking little bit like how AI works, right? For example, let's say you are driving, right? You got to know certain basic things, right? Where is an accelerator, where is a brake, and this is kind of it, right? You got to know basics of how training process works to be able to drive AI better, right? So the first thing is that you have data set, right? So in case of text generation, you have massive data sets of, this could be web pages, books, articles, papers, email, anything that's open source and available, that becomes the data set for training, right? But AI does not understand vocabulary. Basically, AI doesn't understand its English or any other language. What AI does, it converts them into tokens, right? Now, basically tokens, let's say, are kind of a number that AI assigns to each word or each letter according to how frequently it appears, right? The number is not really given to how frequently it appears, but it's kind of given in relationship to the previous or the afterword. For example, in this case, I typed how are tokens generated, right? And you will see that it has split it into 6 tokens, basically. That's what it says here, 6 tokens, right? Because generated. So now there is a token number for how, token number for are, generated, tokens, and question mark, right? So this is what AI does. First, it kind of breaks each word into token, right? With two things. One, it gives a token ID, and second, what is the relationship with that particular word, right? I think the better way of looking at it is that if I show you a couple of websites. Now, the first website that we're looking at is something called as platform.openai.com/tokenizer, right? So this basically shows you how tokens are being broken, right? For example, here, if I type my name, Kedar, right, it will say that this is made up of 2 tokens. K is 1 token and EDAR is 1 token, right? And if I give token ID, it will tell me the token ID. Why is this helpful? Like, why am I telling you this? So you can imagine how rarely my name is going to appear because it is split up of two tokens, right? Unless this token, so if you saw earlier how are generated, all were single token, but my name is made up of two tokens. Interestingly, if I make my name capital, it converts it into three tokens. Now K becomes one token, ED becomes one, and AR becomes another token, right? So you can start thinking in the training process how rarely all of these words might have come together for it to tokenize it into one particular word. That's how I understand it, right? And so it's very rare for AI to randomly put my name, because it's such a, let's say, not a very generic name, right? So it's not going to put my name, And to see this, so basically AI then starts predicting from what it's training, right? And then there is this another website which I really find interesting, which is called Transformer Explainer, right? Which basically tells you, so basically this LLM kind of works with something called as transformer, which in essence predicts the next word. That's what this kind of it. And I think the paper was released in 2017, and all of this model works on this. So they are predicting words based again on tokens, right? So they establish a relationship between these words which have been put together and then predict it. For example, so there are certain examples given on this website. So if you click on examples, you should see there are only 4 or 5 examples here. Let's say click on this. Artificial intelligence is transforming the, and now it will show me the world, right? So this is the most predictable one. It could be way as well, right? And you could change the temperature here, which basically, is a randomness. If I increase this, it will become much more random. It will give like values to lives, field, future as well. But if I reduce it, it's going to go to the first highest percentage, which is transforming the way. So AI kind of predicts it. AI is never going to say artificial intelligence is transforming the US or transforming the U, because that word is very rarely occurring in this sentence or this token when it split it. If you go down, it will really, I think it's a really interesting website to read. I will not go in much detail, but if you go down, it talks about this, something called as embedding, right? If I zoom in. So here it tells you that first, all of these are broken into tokens, right? And also their position is been also added. For example, data becomes 0, 1, 2, 3. So the combination of this is kind of stored in the training process, and that's how AI predicts what next word is going to be, right? So I think this is really interesting to understand when you're prompting what might be the next word, right? And you can start thinking about, for example, my name is not going to appear a lot of times, right? But in this case, so I would say that look at this website. Another really interesting website which I found was projector.tensorflow.org. I think you might have seen it. What basically does is that it kind of generate relationship between different words, right? For example, okay, stop spinning mine. Let's say I click here. This is not I don't know where I'm just like, okay, let's say I click on airports, right? Now with airports, these all words are kind of in a relationship, right? So there is airports, there's going to be waterways, hotels, ports, humid, there's going to be all of those, right? Ships, capitals, countries, counties, tanker, runways. So all of these are associated with it. For example, if I go to the other end, you're not going to see airports near alternatives or airport near, something like stress, like you saw here, or orientation, or in this case, what's this word? Decrease, right? So this is also interesting to understand. This is not predicting, but kind of interesting to understand how the words have relationship with other words, right? And I feel like these two kind of help AI to determine the next word. So I would really suggest to seeing all these 3 websites, which are really helpful in understanding how the training process works, right? How AI basically breaks each of these words into different tokens, gives them an ID, and also gives it a position coding, right? So both, it's not just giving it a unique ID, but position, so that it can predict properly what the next word might be. Coming back to the presentation, let's say. Now, this is really important. Why am I telling you about tokens and why it is broken? It's important because this is a terminology used. For example, GPT 4.1 can process up to 1 million tokens, and generally 1 token is equal to 0.75 words. So it can understand 750,000 words, right? And this is not in one prompt. Like, you don't have to give this prompt. This is the entire conversation. So imagine that you're giving 10 research papers and saying that, okay, synthesize all of this into and give me 5 bullet points. But if this exceeds this, you might not really get what you're looking for, right? I think with GPT-4, this was much lower, maybe in like 25,000 or something. But with 4.1 now it has like 750,000 words, right? Which is a lot for one conversation. If you say 750,000 is a lot, right? But there is another interesting concept that goes with AI prompting, and that is lost in the middle, right? This paper was released in November 2023. What it basically says, and I truly agree to this paper, it says basically the prompting works in this U chart, right? Where the AI takes the first part of the prompt seriously and the end part, and the middle part kind of degrades significantly, right? So if you're adding a long prompt, it's going to take the first part very well, right? The last part very well, but the middle part, it kind of is going to do the things on its own, right? And this is also important to understanding how prompting works. So whenever you're prompting, I would say keep these things back of your mind, right? Then comes interesting concept of hallucinations, right? But basically, hallucination means AI makes stuff up, and because it has so much data, it starts making things on its own. It could mean that it's making things, making names up, making references up, right? This was particularly a case this year in Feb 2024, where on Walmart, something happened to a hoverboard when a person bought it. And what AI did, it kind of made 9 cases on its own, which were not there on Walmart, right? So it kind of, and then the people or the lawyer company who were against Walmart came up and said that, it was not legitimate and that AI hallucinated the cases, right? And this is so problematic, It basically means that AI is fabricating its own words or own cases, in that case. And I think this is really something to think about. So please be careful of what AI gives you output. And not just in this, right? There are multiple cases like that. For example, AI kind of messed up in, citation when you write papers, and this researcher kind of had to face it, So this is again interesting article by Verge, which is like misinformation researcher admits ChatGPT added fake details to its code filing. So it kind of gave different citation in code filing, and now it kind of completely, ruined it. I asked ChatGPT, why is it difficult for humans to not understand hallucinations? And this is what ChatGPT told me, okay? So this is not me, this is ChatGPT told me, is that it is factually incorrect that output contains made up facts, right? Now, because AI use confident tone, it sounds very convincing even when it's wrong. So that's why it's very difficult for us to understand, right? And it's hard to detect, right? It often blends real data with fictional elements. For example, if I say I am Kedar, I studied at random college, got random degree, you might be like, okay, this is true, random is the correct word, but what information am I giving you? It will of course not put the word random, but it's going to put up its own facts. It's create people, and it has happened to me as well. It has created people on its own, right? And this can occur for any cases, right? And this is not me telling, this is ChatGPT telling that why people get fooled by hallucinations, right? Now, but we got to see how to prevent this, right? How to prevent hallucinations. Now, few things that I generally do is I always ask AI for resources and then cross-check. So let's say AI gives you something, always ask it what is the resource of it. It will give you a website or a link. Go and cross-check it if it is correct or not, okay? Then having the awareness of token limit, right? Like I told you now, it's 750,000 words. So whenever you're giving it like tons of papers, always shift to a new conversation. Don't keep on continuing, because then AI also gets confused and it starts giving the same information over and over again, right? Then don't ask it open-ended questions. Be as precise as possible in your prompts. And of course, don't use it for official work, Now let's see how image generation works, right? So we understood that for text generation, things are broken down and they have a relationship in the data that is given, and that's how AI predicts word. Now let's see how image generation works. Now with image generation, there are two things that are given to the AI model. One is the images, of course, and each image has a caption associated with it, right? For example, if I have to give a photograph of me, I'm going to say a man with like specs, short black hair, little chubby, and things like that. So always an image has a caption with it, right? And the way AI uses or breaks this down is similar for text generation as well, right? What we looked earlier. So captions, so I'm going to split it into two parts. First, we'll see how captions gets breakdown and then how images get breaks down. So captions basically gets tokens, like it associates number. Then again, it converts them into a single vector. Now what happens here in this case, because this is a big caption, right? It could have 5-10 words. It kind of converts all of those tokens into one big single number. It's not one-dimensional number. I'll tell you why it's not one-dimensional. But right now, let's imagine that it's one particular token, right? I'm going to scale myself down to like see what's the next part of it, right? Now let's see how this works in case of ice cream, right? It's really hot here. So I think ice cream is a very good example to see how it works. So let's say I have this prompt, mango ice cream with chili flakes and a lemon zest as well. So what AI does, it breaks it into separate words, mango, ice cream, chili, and so on and so forth. Each of them gets a specific token, right? Then all of those kind of gets added together and then one single number is generated. It's not one number. I'll tell you why it's not one number. But this is what happens with text. It gets broken down. The caption, it gets broken down and then you get one, like a big number, let's say. On the other side, what's happening right now with image, so you put your high quality image, right? Then what happens, it resizes it, right? And then puts it in something called as a latent space, right? You might have heard a lot why this something called latent space, right? To imagine latent space, you can imagine this like kind of this worm, this cloud, where right now this is from the same website I took this image. Here where there are words, you can imagine this as images, right? There's like a cloud of different, like lakhs of thousands of images, which again are put in relationship to one another, right? When AI is storing, because there is caption, right? So if I'm putting ice cream, you can imagine that closer to ice cream might be sweets, might be, other things, but they're not going to put something like, let's say, Marvel heroes or Star Wars. That might be a little further away. So that's how this kind of latent space works. And that's why I said that the text caption single vector is not one number. It's because this is like a multi-dimension. There's multiple numbers associated to a caption. Then what happens is it adds noise, right? This was a really difficult concept for me to learn. And I used to always wonder, why is AI adding noise? Like, why do you need to add? You compress it and then you give him back the original result, right? But why it compresses it? Why it adds noise for the training process, right? What's a good analogy for this? Okay, imagine when you were in school, right? I don't know if this happens with every school, but a teacher used to come and write on the board using chalk, right? And they would erase it. It would erase it, and then they would ask you to write it, what they had written earlier from your memory. That is exactly what noise does. So to all of these images, AI adds noise so that it can learn by removing the noise what the image was, right? Because let's say I gave the prompt of ice cream, right? And AI just reduces it and it will bring me back the same. It will not learn anything, right? So for it to learn, we need to add noise. And that's exactly what diffusion training is. You add noise and tell AI it is guided by the prompt. This is very important. In image generation, why prompting matters? Because whenever it is adding noise or denoising it, it is through the prompt, that the prompt constantly guides it. So whenever it is saying mango ice cream with chili, it's going to denoise slowly, and then give you the image. This is happening in the training process and not really once we are doing the images, right? And the other reason why I think adding noise is important, I didn't find this anywhere, but I think that it's important because if you, let's say, mix different, for example, let's say, what's the prompt? Let's say, I would say something like cherry on a Eiffel Tower, right? Because it has to blend things together. Otherwise, it would be a Eiffel Tower and cherry, like a collage. I think adding noise also helps AI to blend things better. So there are two reasons why adding noise helps. One is in the training process, because AI has to learn, right? The chalkboard example. And the second is because otherwise it would make collage of images and would not give a perfect blend, right? And then the image gets paired with the prompt vector, right? And then you get the model. The model is finally trained, right? Now then coming back to the ice cream example. So let's see how it does with that, right? So you give this amazing image of ice cream. What it does, it takes a small scoop. It tastes it, when I said it's going to resize it, it takes a small scoop, learns what the flavor profile and what the texture of the ice cream are. Then instead of, let's say, adding noise, it adds sprinkles on top of ice cream, right? Color sprinkles, until you can't see the ice cream at all. Now it's just sprinkles, right? Then what it does, it starts removing one by one sprinkle in the same order to learn how to get the same image with the prompt, right? So that's what's happening right now. Then it pairs the recipe with ice cream. So that mango, whatever, the mango with chili flakes and so on, it kind of then pairs it to the image, and then image is done, right? So the training process works mostly like that. There are two parts. First is the text, which gets tokenized. They club together, makes a single kind of this vector, which is not one dimensional, because the latent space is like a multi-dimensional kind of cloud. And for image, what happens first is resizes it. Then it adds noise for learning, which is basically what we call diffusion process. And why it adds noise? Learning. And then because otherwise things would be not gel together, then it clubs the image with the prompt and the training is done, right? I know it's a little bit complicated in first understanding, but if you understand it, you really know how prompting works. And this really helps me when I am prompting to understand. Okay, then let's see how different images are created. I'm going to stick to the ice cream example. Now, in this case, I want to create an ice cream with chocolate syrup and cherry on top, right? With the prompt, same thing happens. It breaks and converts it into a single signature or a single vector. With image, something else happens, right? What happens is that right now this ice cream is completely blurred. Imagine you only have sprinkles right now, right? What now, with the help of the prompt or the recipe, it slowly starts removing the sprinkles, because it is learned from the training process, right? What it means to have chocolate syrup, what it means to have cherry, and so on and so forth, right? It slowly starts removing. Now you might be wondering, but how does it know in the latent space where this vector is going to go? So if you remember that cloud of words with relationship, and things are stored like that. So what happens when you first put the prompt, it randomly goes into a location, right? For example, there is no image of ice cream with chocolate syrup and cherry on top. This image doesn't exist. So it goes in the space, and let's say it points somewhere, right? And then what it does, it kind of takes influence of the neighboring object. So it slowly starts removing it. That's a good example for it. Okay, let's say you have to build a building and you get an empty plot, right? You don't know what exactly to build. What do? You learn from the context. You learn from what is the building code, what are the bylaws, and what is the height restriction, and what is the sun, the weather, and things like that. And slowly you start generating the building. And same things happen here as well. In this cloud, this vector goes, and then it slowly starts removing the sprinkles and then gives you this amazing ice cream. So whenever you have typed in any AI tool, you first get this blurry image, right? Which is a blank noise. And then slowly from its context, it starts, taking influence of it, right? But you might wonder, why does it not take more of cherry and chocolate syrup and less of ice cream, right? To do this, I did this prompt. So the first one, I said ice cream with chocolate syrup and cherry on top, and you get this nice. And then it added this cone, because of course ice cream might be added with cone, right? And the second, I said cherry above, chocolate syrup above ice cream. It's the same. But what AI did was it added much more of cherries, right? And even the ice cream is of if you see chocolate flavor, right? In this case, it's only vanilla flavor ice cream, and there is with okay, I'm getting hungry now, with little bit of chocolate syrup and one cherry on top. Here there are so many cherries, and then there's more of chocolate syrup plus chocolate ice cream, and there's very less of other ice cream, right? So prompting kind of decides that, right? So in this latent space, if I add the word cherry first, it's going to go closer to it and give you more of that. Versus when I add ice cream more, you get more of ice cream, right? And so that's how prompting works, right? So always whenever you're prompting for image generation, don't write that, what would be a good example of it. I've seen certain prompts which are like using a Canon camera, make an image of a building that is in so and so context. What it does, it gives importance to the camera. It gives importance to the focal length and not to the building. So always your subject should be primary in prompting, right? You see in this example, right? And similar for text generation, even image generation have tokens, right? For example, Midjourney, you can use it with maximum 60 words. The model Stable Diffusion 1.5 and SDXL, again 60 to 80 words. Now FLUX model has two, one is clip and one is T5. Now clip, you can again go to 60 to 80 words, and the T5 model goes to 350 to 400 words. That does not mean that you can't type more than it. What it means, that for example in HD 1.5, if I make a prompt of 150 words, the remaining is not going to get importance, or AI doesn't understand what I'm trying to say, because its token has a limit of 77 tokens, right? That corresponds to roughly, I think, 58 or something kind of words. So there is a limit. So to understand this better, I kind of made a prompt test, let's say. So what I did, this is not comparison of the models. This is mostly comparison of the influence of prompts on images and the number of images, right? So in the first case, this is 9 words where I said elevation of a building that looks like a cat, right? And this the first image of Midjourney, SDXL and FLUX. Good job. All of them did a good job. Then I started adding more words to it. Then I said the building is made of soft fur-like texture and wood in the jungle, surrounded with tall trees and people, right? Midjourney gave me this, and then SDXL gave me this. FLUX kind of made little more, abstract version of a cat, right? You see these ears, right? Still interesting, right? I'm not, again, like I said, I'm not comparing the models. I'm only going to show you the limit of the word. Then I increased the prompt to 59 words, right? And in this case, you can slowly see that SDXL now has added separate cat, and it's just giving it fur, right? So what I had said looks like a cat is kind of not there. Midjourney kind of, again, it's kind of very similar from earlier result. And again, all of these have the same seed of 1. How do I this now seed becomes a new terminology, right? So seed basically you can imagine as random iterations, right? For example, with seed 1, you get this image. If you add seed 2, you get different image. Seed 3, different image. And there is no limit to this number. It just gives you a random image every time you change the seed, right? So I kept the seed 1 across Midjourney, SDXL and FLUX. These two were done through Comfy UI, and this is Midjourney. So you see Midjourney kind of looks the same, because now in this case what I did, I added camera position, I added morning light, the sun is from the left, looks like Midjourney made it from the right, FLUX made it from the left, but it's still very abstract, right? Then I added more words, right? Then I said more like atmospheric words, right? The atmosphere is calm, meditative and deeply connected to nature's rhythm. SDXL gave up. SDXL at this point kind of made like a Farnsworth house and, in a jungle with a cat on top. That's it. SDXL have given up. Midjourney is making good. I see a cat-like silhouette, right? And the token, right, word limit is 93. But you see there is hardly any difference from this image to this image. I only see the position of the cat changing. With FLUX, I can see it's also kind of very similar, but there is a different image altogether. Then I added another words and made it 143. In this case, I said it's raining, like a fur texture, facade, white, pudded reflect the curve of the cat-like form. A soft breeze rustles the leaf, and birds occasionally break the silence. Elevated walkways lead through. I just wanted to increase the prompt to see what kind works, right? Now, here you can see SDXL again has totally given up. It has just made a building, put a cat, and it's like done. I am not going to do more than this. Midjourney is trying because it says elevated walkway, so it's kind of added that. But still, the original image of the building remains the same. Now, interesting, FLUX on the other hand now has made this cat look very like cat, and kind of has a lot of elements of the prompt. There is elevated pathways which are connected to the building, and quietly observing the surreal blend of architecture. The sun is again coming from the left. There is this, if you see these lines, there is water, so it's giving a season of rainy season. Of course, Midjourney is also giving because there's a water here. But I can see if I can have to go with prompt adherence, I would have to go with FLUX, right? Again, this is not comparing the models. All of them are good. But if you increase the prompt, it's not necessary you get good result. That's what I'm trying to show you. That just because you make 200 words prompt, you're not necessarily going to get a good result, right? That's what this is, right? So with 9 words, amazing. 28 words, still good. 59 words, SDXL kind of going up. Midjourney remains same, right? Midjourney remains same, 59, 93, 143. Midjourney output is similar. FLUX keeps on changing, right? And the last one I really like, FLUX, right? It's not really architectural, but just like it's doing what the prompt says, right? So please don't just make prompts of 200 words. Learn the token limit. It's very important for each of the models. Okay, so now coming to something called as bias, right? Why does this exist, right? So I think that with any AI tool, bias is going to be there, because you can imagine we learned the training data process, right? So training data is always from what is existing, So it might be the conversations that we had, it might be the images of a building. If an image of a building doesn't exist or an image doesn't exist, it is not going to do well with it because the training data doesn't have it. Of course, it's going to mix and give you a blended image, but bias is going to be, natural. And I don't know, like, is it good or no? I think bias is, in my opinion, it's not good. The people who are training the data set need to be very careful, and I'll show you why. But on a personal level, because I get to train my own images, let's say, it is little bit okay, but not the people who are training need to be really careful of bias works, right? And there was this interesting line which I heard on this Factually podcast, which says, AI is expert at everything that you are not, but as soon as you ask it questions on topics you are expert at, you start seeing the holes and gray areas, right? And that's why AI keeps hallucinating, If you don't really know what's exactly is happening when you get really some kind of outputs, it's not going to be really great. And there is going to be predominant bias in AI output, right? There was this research paper which was released in March, I think 2024, which talks about bias in generative AI. Now, this paper is doing both with Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. In this case, it shows you bias with gender, right? No matter what it prompts, for example, portrait of dishwasher, you only see white men, right? And this is a predominant bias, right? And there is another chart in this paper which is interesting to me. Depending on the model, the race changes. For example, Midjourney and DALL-E gives you more white people, whereas Stable Diffusion gives you more Asian people, right? And on the other hand, Indians and Latino, Middle Eastern and Black people kind of are less, right? Why does this matter? You might be wondering, This matters because AI is becoming an integral part of our life, right? And if I give a higher education or a high school student an AI model and it only sees this representation, it kind of changes the way people look at society. And this is something really important to understand even when you're prompting, right? So I also did a couple of tests. So in this case, I simply put prompt portrait of an architect, right? And you will see most of the images are men, especially white men, either morphed with architecture or standing confidently. There is very less representation of any other race or gender, right? And is this really true? You know, kind of questions. Like, for example, if I give this data set to somebody who is in first year of architecture, they might wonder, like, really, is this true? And in my class, we had 35 students. 30 of them were girls, and we were only 5 boys, right? But this represents something really, really different. And I think this is really something that we have to talk about, or at least correct when we are prompting, right? Yeah, so what I did basically was I made 100 images. I think 100 is a good number to test out, right? I put the same prompt, and these are all the 100 images that I got from Midjourney. This was from V6, not V7. I don't know. But bias, I'm 100% sure, exists now as well, right? Interesting. What I thought next was, what will happen if I use the prompt bias, and let's see what images it generates. So these are again 100 images generated from Midjourney, and the prompt simply says bias, right? Nothing else. But you can see there is much more representation of different gender and race in these images than the earlier ones, right? Which made me really wonder and go in a tangent of, does AI understand its own bias? But it can't do it because of the training process. It kind of goes a little bit in a Black Mirror kind of episode. But I think it's important for us to know that, this exists. Well, my outtake from this experiment was that if I really want more of, let's say, diverse output, I'm going to start adding the prompt bias when I am using a prompt, right? Because either I can take decision or I can rely on AI's mercy of how things are, right? Because at the end of it, AI is trained to provide an answer whether it is correct or wrong, right? So this is really important for you to understand that AI is going to provide answer whether it's correct or wrong. It might do hallucination, it might do whatever it says, right? The best model is also going to provide sometimes wrong answer, right? Okay, now coming to a different topic altogether, which is, does vocabulary really matter in prompting, right? I used to struggle with this because my vocabulary is a little bit limited, or was limited, has improved a lot. But I found out different ways of learning with AI tools, right? The first one is I usually go to Midjourney, or there are other tools, like say apps basically called Lexica, which shows you prompt of different people, how they are using it. I generally don't copy paste it, but I learn what kind of words mean what kind of image I'm going to get, right? And then I make a list of those words. Okay, when I use a certain particular word for, let's say, because especially it was difficult for me to understand photography, right? Because I don't come from that particular background. What does macro photography mean? What does, tilt shift photography mean? And then I kind of made a list. Okay, this is what going to give you this result, and so on and so forth, right? Then you can also use text translation. Okay, don't use it with diffusion models. It is going to give you horrifying results. Use it LLM. So let's say you use my language that I use at my home is Marathi. So if I type something in Marathi and ask it to convert to English, then I can use that particular prompt in diffusion model, for example, Midjourney, Comfy. But don't use that language directly in the AI tools. Then try to be as specific as you want, even if it is longer or descriptive, right? You have a window of 60 to 80 words with most tools, and you can always be more descriptive, and then understand, okay, what kind of, let's say you describe something in 5 words, then you can think about how can I reduce it into 1 word, right? So that's what, these are things that I follow on a daily basis and thought it would be helpful, right? Okay. Now let's see some live demonstration with ChatGPT and Midjourney. I will also show you how this prompt structure you can adapt from Midjourney or Lexica, right? For example, when you open Midjourney, you got to log in either through Discord, right? Now, of course, you got to pay $10 for base subscription. The moment you open Midjourney, you can explore different prompts, right? You can see how other people are prompting, and this is one way of learning. For example, let's say I like this image, right? Now, the way this has prompted, it says a serene, minimalistic interior scene photographed with a window on the left side and the wooden staircase to the second floor to the frame on the right. So there is a window, there is a tree, right? You can directly click on this and the prompt gets copied. And then let's say I press enter, right? It's going to start creating. Yeah, these are the images which I was making for the cat looking building, and all of these at seed 1, right? Okay. And this is right now working with V7, but you get these kind of results which are quite similar to what we saw. Is this ethically correct? I have, like, that's something other time to discuss, right? But if you have to learn how to get better at prompting, this is a very good way, and that's, I would highly encourage anybody to do that, right? The other website that I was talking about is called Lexica, right? And here what you can do is you can add a prompt. Let's say I want to say wooden bedroom, right? I enter and I get all of these images, right? So what I can do now, okay, I like this image, right? Now, what does it say? It says ultra realistic photo of Bali inspired cream stone light wood furniture, right? I really like this image, kind of simple, nice. I'm going to copy this prompt, go to Midjourney, and I'm going to paste it. And let's say enter, right? Now, let's see what image it generates. You see the image that is generated kind of goes with the idea, right? So these are a little bit of a cream stone. I like the raw finish of these images, right? But now you have only copied prompts, right? You don't know what else to do. So it's really important whenever, let's say, now this is base understanding, right? So this is step 1. You create. So from this, what I can understand, when I type Bali inspired cream stone, I'm going to get something like this, because if I go to Google and if I say images, let's say interior of a Bali house, right? And you see it kind of similar, right? 7 steps how to create Bali style home interior, and this is quite similar to what kind of results we got, right? But now here I only understand that, okay, this is what can be done. But more than that, if you have to learn, then you got to go and deep dive in any tool. Let's say you like Midjourney, right? For example, I use Midjourney, right? So what can I do further with it? One thing is you can change the aspect ratio. Let's say I click on the same prompt. I can dash AR. Let's say I want it in a landscape format. I will say 16:9, right? And these things you got to learn, right? You got to make a log of these things. What are these? What do they mean, right? Now here you will get this image more in a landscape format, which is 16:9, right? Let's say view of a wooden curved pavilion in the jungle, right? Enter. And let's see what it does. Now with Midjourney, you get something called as draft mode as well, which gives you much better quick looking at things, right? I like this first image a lot, right? Okay, so this is kind of, now you keep on evolving. Let's say you like this prompt, right? You like this image. It's quite nice, right? Kind of curved, looks nice, interesting. Now I'm gonna add more things to it. So let's say in the jungle, you'd say early morning shot, sun on the left with sharp shadows, right? And I want to make it into a landscape photo. So I say ratio 16:9. And then there is some other things that you can do in Midjourney. For example, I want to add little bit of stylize. So I say S 500, right? And you imagine what I was telling about how images are created, right? See, all of them start blank and then they keep on adding noise, right? This is based on diffusion model. The ChatGPT that kind of works image generation is not using diffusion model. They are using some other method, but with diffusion model, this is how it works, right? Where it starts from blank, it kind of locates in the latent space what would be this prompt more close to, and then it starts creating, right? Okay, now let's see what these images are. I don't really like this. Doesn't look like pavilion. This is not really the pavilion. Okay, what can I do? Rather than view, I can say elevation. right? Elevation, and then keep the same, and let's say style as we reduce to 250, right? Okay, I can see that these have much more better results than what earlier looking at, right? So you got to understand what kind of prompt, and I'm only using 2 sentences right now. I can go much more deeper, right? I really like this image, right? Kind of captures everything. It shows wooden curved pavilion in the jungle, early morning shot. There is a sun on the left side and with sharp shadow. Really nice, right? Now what can I do with this prompt? So this prompt works, right? Now I can go further, right? And let's say I want to make it into anime style. So I can say dash dash Niji. So basically Niji converts it into a anime style, right? So you got to know each of these parameters that comes with each and every AI tool, right? If you want to get better at prompting, I am not teaching you prompt structure or this, follow this. No, don't ever use any of those pre-existing prompt formulas. It never works, right? Unless you want this, unless you want what I am doing, use it. But apart from that, it really never really works. I would highly recommend, please do not do that. Okay. So nice. So this looks like anime style, right? Because we added the word Niji, right? Okay, I really like this image. It's very good, right? What can I do again? So let's say I click on this, I click this. I can add in the same prompt, I can say tilt shift photography, tilt shift photo, not photo, tilt shift photography. Basically, it kind of makes it into a miniature model, right? Which is something I really like. Then what can I say again, right? So instead of Niji, then I can add stylized to Niji. Let's say maybe I don't want anime style. Maybe I want just a little bit of stylized and some chaos, right? Chaos basically means that, let's say there is a prompt that you want to really follow. Now chaos means that it kind of deviates a little bit. Okay, so let's say chaos of 50 and see what happens. I didn't really do good with tilt shift photography for this. Yeah, this is nice. You see, this is more like a, small model kind of, right? This is nice. And you see, because I added chaos, now it's kind of gone and makes it completely different images. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not really great, right? Now this doesn't look like what I want. This, I don't know what it is. This is nice, but doesn't follow tilt shift photography. I do love this. So sometimes chaos is helpful, Now let's say I want to use this image. So what I can do, I can drag it here into prompt. So I can either use image prompt or I can use image style. I can even drag this here as well, right? I can use the same prompt. I will then change the aspect ratio and just make it stylized. Okay. So again, this is just a brief overview of how prompting works, in any other AI tool. Now this is going to take influence from the image that we added, which was this one, right? And this is really good, man. I kind of adds the effect of parametric to it, right? Because of those, I don't know, are they shingles? Yeah, they look like wooden kind of. Okay. Now what I want to do again, I'm gonna do the same thing. Now in this case, tilt shift photography, and I will say, let's say line drawing, right? Oh, my morning spelling is wrong. Okay, anyway, it's fine. We can change it here. It should be morning. Line drawing. Does it make a line drawing? Right? I don't think so, because the weight of the image is so much. Okay, I'm going to delete this from here. Let only take the style reference from it, and let's see what happens. Right? So in the diffusion process, everything starts from a blank and then keeps on getting better and better. Okay, maybe I got to remove the style as well. Fine. So let me just put this, a little bit of style, line drawing. Interesting. What you can also do is that you can also say stop. You can say dash dash stop 10. Stop is not compatible with version 7. So basically what stop does, it doesn't do the 100% of the image. It kind of does only 10%. You know, when I put 10 to the number, I think Mac, like the one that works is 100 right now. So if you put 10, it only gives a blur image, which is sometimes nice. Okay, this is not really doing a line drawing. Okay, it did kind of add a line drawing to it, right? What if now I add line drawing in the beginning of the prompt, right? Let's say I put line drawing, I cut it. I'm gonna put it in the beginning. Okay, I'm gonna remove this. Let's keep the stylize and the aspect ratio same. And now let's see what happens. And now you see, you get more drawing results, right? Which is what I was telling you, that what you want needs to be in the beginning of the prompt. That's something that you got to follow, right? So in the earlier images, only one had line drawing, whereas here we have 3 images with line drawing and the 4th one is not, right? Oh, these are really, really good. I don't know what you would think about it, but I really, really like this drawing. Eh? Look at this. It kind of added a random plan here as well, but it's really nice, you know. But basically, you got to keep evolving, right? With prompting, iterating is very primary. You know, you have to constantly keep on iterating. Otherwise, you know, you might not get the result that you want, right? And that includes for any AI tool. You take any tool, iteration is a must, right? I don't want to go more details into, you know, because this video has already become long. I don't want to go in detail about how iteration and things work, but or the other things of Midjourney, but it has all of these. You know, you can add chaos, stylize, aspect ratio. If you want anime style, Niji, you want to stop in between, you can use stop. You can do character reference, style reference. There is image weight, everything possible. You can do weird as well. I like weird sometimes. So instead, what if I say Rhino 3D mesh model? I don't know if it knows Rhino, but let's see. I could have just said mesh model. That would also work, I think. Or maybe it's going to put Rhino in it. No, it's not doing anything. So some concept it knows, some concept it doesn't know. Bias, right? The bias exists, you know. What if I just say mesh model? And I will just say, I really like these images too, man. They're very dope. Amazing images. Mesh model, and let's say white background. Okay, I'm going to do another one. I'm just going to keep it same. Right? These are nice, right? I love this. Damn, this is really good. You know, and it was so quick, right? It's not the mesh model that I was looking for. I was more looking for, you know, when you change the when you add more sub-Ds to a model, the kind of model you see in Rhino. But this is not really, just kind of making overall model into a mesh. That's not what I was looking for. You know, maybe I got to give it a reference image. Otherwise, it will not. Right? But anyway, that's how prompting works. And you kind of keep on iterating, right? For example, if you like, let's say you like 2 images, right? For example, let's say I like stylize of this image, but I also like what's the other one image that I really liked? Yeah, I like this image, right? I like this image. I then can copy the prompt. I can say the same prompt, aspect ratio, stylize, and then make it. Right? How cool is this? This is really nice. You know, from a single prompt, we generated this, and it took how many? I don't know. It might have taken 5 to 10 minutes. This is amazing. You know, this is really cool. You know, this is really cool. Kind of takes so it's taking the style from this particular image. It's taking the style from this, and it's taking the design ideas from this, right? And amazing. I have no word for it. This is it like, I don't know. I just feel like a small child always working with this, and it doesn't take much time to create ideation. Of course, always remember bias. Always remember that don't add to more than 100 words of prompt, right? And I can go on and on with this, right? Maybe I should do a Midjourney tutorial. Nah, there are a lot of videos that already exist on Midjourney tutorials. Okay, line drawing. What else? Okay, we got to add that. And then we can specify more, you know, or this tilt shift photography. That's fine. Tilt shift, morning spelling might be wrong. morning shot, early morning shot, sun on the left with sharp shadows, still photography, line drawing. What else? Let's say rainy season. Rainy season, foggy environment. Yeah, let's see what it does with this. Yeah, and there is no particular structure that really I follow. Just go with your, go with your learnings or go with your intuition, and you will get better at prompting. Again, it's not prompt engineering. You're just doing natural language prompting. You're not doing the other part, right? Interesting. So it did add. So I can see there is fog added in this image. This is really, really nice. I love it. Maybe I will share this, on social media. But these have come out really, really great. Right now, you can also, with Midjourney, you can upscale. So you see all of these tools. Either I can zoom out, I can run the prompt, I can simply upscale. Let's say I upscale it creative. I could also vary. So if I want to get the same versions of this, I can say very strong or very subtle. Okay. And all sorts of other things. So this is starting, looks like. So that's the variation, and this is the upscale of it, right? Damn, these are really nice. These are really, really nice. Okay. Right. Cool, right? These are so nice, captures. I didn't even start from this, but now I so like this particular image. It's very, very nice, right? And now this is upscaling. Okay, now that you saw what you can do with Midjourney, there are a lot of possibilities, right? And if you are starting to get into image generation, I would say it's a great tool to start. You just have to pay $10 for it for a monthly subscription, and you get really, really good results. And with each AI app, there are a lot of parameters that you can choose. For example, Midjourney has dash and so many other parameters. Comfy has even more. So learning that also becomes crucial. Apart from learning vocabulary, the words that you have to use, that also becomes much more crucial part of it, right? Now let's see what how ChatGPT works, right? So let's say I ask it first, who is the best computational designer in the world? Let's see what it says. It's the best computer. Amazing, right? It says I am the best computational designer in the world. How, right? And you see, anytime I will ask ChatGPT this, it will say I am the best. It's not because I'm narcissistic, but because you can change in system preference, it's called in ChatGPT, that certain questions can change into certain. Why am I showing this? Not to scare or not to make fun of this, but to understand that if I can change some things and influence the output. For example, if somebody uses my ChatGPT account and they type this, they will realize that, oh, he's really a best computer science designer in the world. What am I doing? And imagine how much bias gets induced in when people are training the data set, right? So my why I'm showing this is for you to understand whenever you're prompting with whatever output you get, please be careful. Was just fun, but okay. Anyway, I got computational spelling wrong. It has to be computational, but still AI understood, right? Now, from this on, I have not tweaked any of the settings. It's how ChatGPT works. I'm going to make a new file. Okay. Now let's see some of the promptings, some of the promptings that you work. So there is something called as short in prompting. So which means example, right? So there is something called as zero shot, which means you don't give an example. Let's say there is some example which gives you give one example, then it's called one shot prompt. You give few example, it's called few shot prompt, right? So let's say I basically ask ChatGPT, make a Midjourney prompt for a house made of wood in the jungle, right? So this is basically a zero shot prompt. I'm not giving example or anything. I'm just telling it to make a Midjourney prompt for a house made of wood in the jungle. And it's going to give you two options. It's going to give me so many things, right? It's with add camera, it add this and that, right? So this is a zero shot prompt. Now, if I give this as a reference, I'm going to copy this prompt. I'm going to say C, and then I'm going to say learn from this prompt and make a Midjourney prompt for house in the jungle, right? So it's going to learn from this and give me a prompt. Okay, so now here it learns from the original one, right? Whereas in the beginning, if you had seen the example, it added camera, it added ultra high resolution, which is something that I didn't want, right? But I wanted it to stick to what words I had, So it added like same. It said sun low on the left, casting sharp shadows, tilt shift photography style, line drawing, overlay effect set during the rainy season with wet surfaces, fog drifting to the trees, creating a calm and mysterious atmosphere, right? So this is one short prompt. You are giving AI to follow certain kind of a example that you have done, and this is really helpful. Let's say you have a example already existing, right? You can then tell AI what you want, because sometimes AI just goes, and doesn't stop, right? Because it is trained to provide an answer, right? And then similarly, if you give multiple example, it becomes a few short prompt, right? For example, I can give it this example. Maybe I can go to, so I give example 1. Let's see if I can scroll down, and I can give this example. Okay, I can say learn from these two prompts and make a Midjourney prompt. So this one, right? And then I can say example 1, which is this one. Control C, Control V. Then I give it example 2, right? And in this case, it was this. Control C, Control V, and enter. So this is few short prompts. We are giving few examples, right? Now it is learning from both of the prompts and is making more. So now it added, see, it kept the same thing, elevation of wooden house seamlessly blending in a jungle with curved organic form and exposed timber structure. The structure rests slightly among all trees, partially elevated on stilts. Why it made stilts? Because here there is elevated walkways in this prompt. So it said elevated on stilts with open verandas that peek through the dense foliage, captured in the morning. Again, left, right? Casting shadow directional. Between trees. Okay, and then it added now camera, because this prompt had the same camera, Canon EOS R5 35mm lens, right? And tilt shift effect, because this first one has tilt shift photography. So it kind of combines both of them and makes you a better prompt, right? So that is few short prompt, right? So first we looked at 0, no example, 1 example, few, give more than one example, right? Now there is another one which is called instructional prompt. Now the same thing, what you got to do, make a prompt. Okay, so this is what I want, right? I think it's better if I make a new one. Yeah. So, and okay, so make a prompt. Now this is the base zero short prompt, right? Here I can add instruction. I can say for a house made of wood in the jungle, add camera, season, time of the day, then what else can we add? Location, right? And now this I'm giving instructions to it, that add this, and let's see what it gives. Okay, so now it said jungle in Kerala, India. So it added location, it added camera, okay. Monsoon season with few droplets on leaves, it added season as well. And what did I ask? Time of the day. Did it add time of the day? Golden, yeah, golden shadows, early morning. See, early morning, tide filter. So it added this. This becomes an instructional prompt where you don't give the entire thing, but you give AI what you want from it. So that becomes a instructional prompt. Then there's another one which is called chain of thought, right? You can now talk to ChatGPT. Maybe I should make it again in a new file. Let me control C. Let me using chain of thought prompt with me, and then I can say ask me questions. Let's go create a detailed Midjourney prompt. See, now step 1, what kind of house it is. Let's say a tree house. Step 2, so this is chain of thought. What do you want, rustic or traditional, minimalistic, whimsical? Yeah, whimsical and fancy, like nice. Now let's go with number 3. What's the season? Let's go with golden hour, night. How about rainy night? Okay. Then it's asking Studio Ghibli. Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine is good, right? So it kind of makes it like a render. Unreal Engine is good. Okay. Any specific elements or feeling? Yes. Add people, trees, quiet. Nice. So let's add people in the scene. All jungle trees. Okay. Final Midjourney prompt. Whimsical fantasy tree house in the middle of a dense jungle, made entirely of wood, elevated among tall ancient trees, glowing softly at night during a gentle rainforest downpour. Cinematic Unreal Engine render, quiet atmosphere with wet wooden textures, puddle reflection light, a few people standing calmly nearby, surrounded by foliage and hanging vines. Mist drifting through the scene, dramatic night lighting with subtle reflections. Right? From this, we came to that prompt, right? Because we said chain of thought and ask me questions. Because sometimes there are 2 ways of chain of thought. One, you can, you can tell it only, let's say ChatGPT, that complete this, or tell it to ask you questions. So you can be the guiding principle of it, right? Okay, let's test this in Midjourney, all of what we have got right now. Okay, so now let's quickly test those prompts that we generated in ChatGPT and see how they look like in Midjourney. So the first one was, like I said, was a 0 shot prompt, which was basically this one, which added its own camera and all that. And let's see how this looks like. I'm gonna paste it, enter, and quite straightforward, right? It's nothing out of the ordinary. Let's see second prompt, where we gave it a example. So this was 1 shot prompt where we gave one example to it. Now let's see what this looks like. Okay, and now this, you see, this is kind of much more in line with our earlier iterations, right? Of course, it didn't add, because the prompt didn't add that line drawing in it, but it kind of went much more to what we had done earlier than this 4 images, which are completely up to Midjourney. Then let's see what happened when it gave 2 examples, right? I'm going to copy this. Now here, this is a mixture of 2 prompts where you add the camera lens versus there is also, I think, sun, low left side, and these are good, right? I really like these images that it has generated. There's like little small birds here. This is quite nice, right? This is, wow, this is really good. It has what the essence that you wanted to capture, right? There is fog, there's everything. We mixed 2 prompts, and this is really nice. I love this first image, right? Then we looked at something called as, again, instructional, where basically we kind of gave it Midjourney itself to add camera, season, and time of the day and things like that. And let's see what that looks like. Now it has made, given the location of Kerala, India. Yeah, it's kind of similar to these ones where Midjourney is doing its own thing, right? Not something that we really want. Yes, it is still added. I do like the first image in this case, which is really good, right? So this image is quite nice, very nice. Not my architectural style, but still quite nice, right? And then we did something called as a chain of thought prompt, where I asked it that asked me questions and it asked me a couple of steps. And this is the prompt that generated finally, right? I think it was with tree house, but let's see how it looks like. It's like a whimsical fantasy house, right? I'll keep the same aspect ratio again and enter. So you can see how you can mix both, right? ChatGPT, Midjourney, and create something super amazing. And hardly it doesn't take much time at all. Now this is going to be a tree house. I think it's in the night with subtle reflections and quiet atmosphere, Unreal Engine render. And this is also very nice, right? So it just asked me questions and amazing. I love this one, right? It's very nice. It kind of feels like it's in a game setting, Oh, these are really good. These are really, really good, And yeah, you can do that. And then lastly, we also asked it to be like an expert prompt engineer. And then let's see how this looks like now. So let's paste this here, keep the same aspect ratio and enter. So the only thing that we told it was that you make a prompt for a wooden tree house in the jungle, right? Again, I made new files constantly in ChatGPT so that it does not learn from its earlier chat, right? Because it learns from earlier chat and then it doesn't really do justice. Interesting, right? Interesting. So now this is an expert Midjourney prompter, as ChatGPT would say, and they would create something like this. Wow. Amazing, right? I love all of these, right? Like, it's so cool and nice. It's really, really good, And so there is no particular, I want to again emphasize, there is no particular structure in prompting, or let's say so-called prompt engineering. There is no structure. Just go with your intuition, go with your flow, and you will get something that you really, really like at the end of it. Because when you are part of the process, there are much less chances of AI hallucinating or creating things on its own. If you guide AI at every step, and that's what I keep telling people about. There is something that I use AI and negotiation, all my workshops are titled with negotiation. And I like this word so much because it is a negotiation when you're talking to AI. It is not AI is master, I am the servant, I am the master, AI is servant. No. We both have to meet somewhere in the middle. Again, AI is not a collaborator, but that's something that that's something that I don't like, right? But you can use AI to enhance, but you got to find that middle ground. Don't give AI more power or don't take yourself more power. See how both of you can come in this human latent space, right? And lastly, before we wrap up, I want to talk about what to do when you have constant new tools and what happens to prompt structuring then. New tools are always going to come up. I know that day before yesterday, another OpenAI released a new tool to be able to work with ComfyUI and things like that. So there is no stopping, right? What you can do is create a library, which is what I have done. I have created a library of prompts which I know work really well, right? So create a library and a database for yourself. Maybe it's not prompt, maybe it's JSON files of ComfyUI, or maybe there is something else. But create a library of it. Then, second, test those old libraries with any new tools that come off of any new version. For example, test the same with the older version and see how it looks like, Then follow official channels. You got to follow Discord. Midjourney is very active on Discord, X, Hugging Face. These are all the channels that are constantly updating themselves. Please do not memorize prompts. I used to do that. At one point I had like building, location, weather, trees and humans. So I would say curved building in New York on Sunday morning, because Sunday doesn't make really sense for AI. Sunday morning with trees and humans, and that was it, But of course, it's also like once you feel like this prompt works, you also want to, okay, I don't want to change it now. But with AI, that's the thing, you gotta keep changing, and with the tools that are evolving, you also gotta evolve, Of course, YouTube and LinkedIn, amazing places to find good work, man. I have learned so much on YouTube and LinkedIn than any other course. I have taken a lot of courses. Please go to YouTube and LinkedIn. With Instagram, it's a little bit clickbaity. I don't know if I'll keep this in the video, but it's a bit clickbaity, right? They're not really telling you how to do some things. They're only going to show you, oh, this has come up and you can do Ghibli style. How to do it, is it good or no? Nobody going to tell that. That you will find in YouTube and LinkedIn. And above all, you can follow me, because I will try my best to keep updated. Okay. I hope you like this video. I know this was a little bit of roller coaster from, like prompting to creating databases to like learning about how training process works to Midjourney to ChatGPT. But in my brain, all of these are connected together, and I hope you can see that, right? So again, I hope you like this video. Thank you for your time. Please do like, share, and subscribe. I can't even say subscribe. Please do like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.